Hello, this is the Tradesight U.S. Stocks and Futures Market Preview for Friday, the 30th of October, 2015, heading into Halloween weekend, the last day of October, and also the last day before the time change on Saturday night here in the U.S. Here's a look at the ES front-month futures contract. This is effectively the daily chart of the S&P, but in futures form, which is the more precise and accurate technical indication of the markets. You can see we've made our way almost all the way back to the starting point of the August crash at this point in time. So we talked about usually the market starts to take off around October 15th and bottom around that point. Well, instead it looks like we bottomed at October 1st, and then we've accelerated starting October 15th so far anyways. We'll see what that leads to. Notice that the seeker count's getting pretty deep into the count. We're now working on the 9th red number here on the seeker, so that would lead to a sell signal at some point in the next week or two if it continues. So be aware of that possibility. Let's look at what happened today, which is not much. Very boring session. The S&P trade lost less than a point, and we'll look at the intraday action. That'll show you how boring it was in a moment. The NDX lost 7 points. You can see the big gap from last week when some of the earnings came out that caused some of the move here from the bottom to the top, or at least over the last couple of weeks on the NASDAQ side, as we are now back to highs on the NDX. Here's the stocks down 20, the biotechs down 26. We've got the VIX up 0.28. We've got the trend at 1.14, the 10-day moving average of the trend also around that level, just a little higher, so there's no warning signs there. NASDAQ volume 1.75 billion shares for the day. That's also the 10-day moving average. And it's not horrible, but it's not great. It's not like what we were seeing. Certainly, we'd like to get back closer to those 1.92 billion share days at a minimum. Decliners, even though we were only down a point on the S&P and 7 on the NASDAQ, decliners led advancers by 909 on the NASDAQ and by 664 on the New York. So that's not very positive for breadth of the market, especially when you're back near highs. Google, on the other hand, was up 8, or I guess I should start calling it Alphabet, was up 8 to 744.85. That's a new closing high there for Google. Apple up $1.26. Amazon, we had a nice winner in today, up $9.45, also a new closing high. Netflix down 68 cents. Keep in mind also, by the way, here's oil at 45.70, down 35 cents. Keep in mind we're also entering the time of year. It usually starts about the middle of November, where stocks that are up for the year, people don't want to sell them and lock in the gain, which means they continue higher even if it makes no sense from a pricing perspective. So we are getting to near that point. You have to think about that on stocks like Amazon and Google in particular, which are up quite a bit for the year. We'll do a special report on that in a week or two when we get closer to where that usually really kicks in and has an impact on the market. So here's a look at the ES front month futures contract. This is, by the way, the ES. This is in 10-minute candles. Usually I'll show you the 5 in a minute, but this is the whole week. And as you can see, if you include last Friday, you see the end of last Thursday, the gap up on Friday. So then Monday and Tuesday were really dead. Wednesday, wiggled around a bit. Look at the 13 sell signal right at the high on Wednesday, and we've not been able to break that level yet. And here's the NQs. I mean, this is some really flat action for the market being at new highs. And keep in mind, with bad breadth, remember, the decliners just killed the advancers today. So that's not really positive. Here's a look at the 5-minute chart so you can just see today. A little gap down on the ES. It did fill the gap. That was pretty much it. We made one little attempt late in the day to break out and came right back. There just wasn't any volume in the afternoon. Like I said, NASDAQ volume only 1.7 billion shares. And there's the NASDAQ. So the gap down here, we never filled the gap. And just in general, what a flat day on the NASDAQ. You don't see that very often. 25 points of range only on the NASDAQ side. So what do we expect for Friday? Well, here's the deal. Friday is a Friday, so that's always a little bit slower. It's also the end of the month, which we don't always like trading. So that's even another reason for it to be slower. And it's also heading into the Halloween weekend. So even though it's not a holiday where there's no days off, it's still sort of a thing that people prepare for and may take off early from. So Friday's not going to probably be very exciting when you look at how Thursday was. I think the biggest thing is the end of month statement printing. We have personal income, personal spending, PCE prices, employment cost index, an hour before the bell. We've got Chicago PMI 15 minutes in and Michigan sentiment 30 minutes into the market. So there is some data there. I'll be around for the first 2 hours or so. Obviously, if it slows down like what we saw or looks as bad as we saw Thursday, probably not a reason to come back for the second half of the day heading into Halloween. We do have the time change this weekend. We'll discuss that in the weekend preview. We will be in the lab trying to help you make money. If you have not taken a trial of our services, feel free to do so. We will help you out for a couple weeks. Charts as usual brought to you by eSignal. Have a great trading Friday.